I'm concerned about Islamic expansion. Through migration, they're trying to invade other places like Europe since they have more children than Europeans. And suddenly, Latin Americans might even end up changing society, the laws, and they could come to Latin America to do the same thing. Even Gustavo Petro has said that he's going to bring Palestinians to Colombia. And I don't know what your opinion is about that.
My opinion is that it's true, and honestly, you don't have to listen to my opinion. Listen to them. The best way to learn the enemy's plans is by hearing what they openly say. The aspiration of Islam is for the world to be Muslim, to create a global caliphate, for everyone to believe in their religion. And there are several ways to do it. One is jihad, war, the sword. But it's not the only way. There are softer, more subtle methods like dawah, which is like the procedure, elitism, and social action. For example, if there are weak or elderly people in society, convert them gradually. And then you start to have migration as well, and you start to have critical masses. Or, for example, jihad is not only about the sword, by the way. There is also media jihad. There is, for example, financial jihad, for example. What does Qatar do? Qatar invests heavily. For example, London is a city that for the most part belongs more to Qatar than to the locals themselves. Do Qataris own more properties in London than the local royalty of England? And what they do is they fund and fund and fund universities, for example, also in Latin America. By the way, do you have departments and places where Qatari money flows? What happens if, for example, media outlets, academia, and influencers are all funded by them? The flotilla, who financed the flotilla? And all of this? Then a narrative starts to form in favor of, well, let's welcome more immigration. And because there are politicians who get money in their pockets and say, well, if it goes into my pocket, do I have to answer to Qatar if I receive more immigrants from Arab countries? Because those are the orders from the Sheikh, and that's how societies start to fill up with this silent migration, which is initially harmless. Most Muslims are not going to go out and do an October 7th out of nowhere. There are some who are the radicals of the spectrum, let's say the extremists of the spectrum. I don't want to say radicals, but the extremists or the fundamentalists. That's actually the right word. But then there's the other part, the apathetic ones. Simply what they're going to do is that tomorrow there will be elections. For example, in London, and they're going to vote for the Muslim mayor. And that's why in London you have a Muslim mayor. And in England there are more and more cities with Muslim mayors. And how is it possible that the population of London, where the majority are not Muslim, there are only 4 million Muslims? Was that enough to already have a whole group of cities where the mayors are Muslim? Now, if you already have Muslim mayors, you have more positions in the market. I don't know if you know how the parliament system works, let's say in England, but do you have more governments that tend to favor the cause of Islam? And so very quietly they start to have more, let's say, presence in Western society. What are you saying? I'm not sure it's alarming, and I don't want people to be scared. Not all Muslims are bad. I mean, the vast majority, you shouldn't see them that way. I've told you many times there are Muslims in the Israeli army. At university, I had and still have Muslim professors and doctors who treat us in hospitals.
This worries me a little because, in Colombia, you didn't used to see these things like Palestinian flags and Free Palestine and all those practices. You didn't see that years ago? And now it seems like, I don't know where they come from, I don't know who funds them, and they cause destruction.
Exactly. You finished the sentence well. Who funds them? That's the point. If you join those marches, you could someday wear their terrorist cosplay, like a keffiyeh if you want. You can ask them and see many people who have no idea. Ask, why are you protesting for Gaza? Where is Gaza? Can you show me on a map? They have no idea. They're really just, as you mentioned at the beginning of your talk, financed by Petro. You see Petro, as they say in public, people handing out Palestine Liberation Organization flags. I mean, Palestinian flags, and they just fill them up. Buses come, people from the countryside get off and they get paid, and they just start selling flags. Because that's today's wage. And they put on this theatrical show among the people. Now, I want to finish what I was saying, that there are Muslims, there are Arabs, and that's all right. What I mean is that, as we're talking about, sometimes they are very apathetic to the phenomenon of radicalism in Islam. Sometimes they are... How can I put it? If some people who are extremists commit attacks, you will very rarely hear Muslims condemning the attacks. It's strange that it happens. In that broadcast, depending on how long you watched, did you see Muslims applauding him? Never. As for me, I don't care if they support Israel. Really, Israel. We Jews have been hated throughout history. Our media war has always been lost. We've never been good at explaining our reason for being. What does matter to me and bothers me is that people support Hamas. And the problem with the average Muslim is that they usually don't speak up when atrocities are committed in the name of Islam. The great tragedy is that in these societies with migration, this happens. And these are decent people who are going to take part in being workers, building railroads, driving buses, and cleaning restaurants. I don't know whatever jobs migrants usually do, but when atrocities happen, they're going to do exactly what you said. They have to decide whether to follow their faith and culture and what their tradition says, which is exactly that, or to side with England. I don't know if the public heard that on Yom Kippur there was a terrorist attack in Manchester where a Muslim terrorist, because most of the terrorist groups in the world are Islamic, a Muslim terrorist ended the lives of two Jews in a synagogue, carried out an attack, and in the end, the police neutralized him. What did they do? The Muslims from the same city of Manchester, they went with Palestinian flags. But the Prime Minister of England declared that a Palestinian state will be accepted, meaning that England is on the side of the Hamas cause. After the attack in Manchester, these pro-Palestinians came out with flags to protest. Do you understand the level? They carry out an attack in a synagogue, take the lives of Jews, of a person, of an elderly man in an openly terrorist Islamic attack, and the first thing they do is come out with flags to protest. What do you think? That's the big paradox here, that the people who are very decent and harmless are not going to raise their voices against these terrible things. So,
So tell me something, Jacob. I don't know if it's right or not, but you know how these people fight through grants for universities? Let's say they sponsor all these marches against Israel and all that. Couldn't Israel suddenly use the same strategy as them? Finance certain movements so that this fight looks a bit more balanced too, so that the media battle waged by these sponsors of lies doesn't look so one-sided.
I think Israel can't afford that luxury because the expenses are very high, Israel. We're already in a war where a large part of our economy has been invested. In this war, we can't afford that luxury. And that's why what we rely on is people like you, like everyone in the chat, people who understand the problem, who understand the flags, who understand the level. When people display Palestinian flags after an attack in Manchester, it suggests the flag represents something nefarious. So people who are awake in the world need to join the cause and not wait for Israel to solve the whole problem. That is, people around the world should also actively join Israel's side in politics, demonstrations, and the media. Share our videos and content from other social networks, of course. That is, I don't think we should wait for Israel to save us. I mean, people also need to become aware and the world needs to change as well.